You're listening to Your Man on the Street with Wisdom's Daughter and James Mack on 92.7 WKRA-FM, your station for information and inspiration. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I am Wisdom's Daughter, here with your man on the street, the one and the only James Mack in the building.
Hey, happy Friday to you, Wisdom.
Happy Friday, James. Now listen, I know it's Friday and I know you're ready to
It
set this
is.
thing on fire because we have a full show for everyone today. Donald Trump was hoping for a slam dunk, but Hunter Biden's trial has only highlighted that his father, Joe Biden, is a man of integrity. Flight attendants aboard an American Airlines flight duct tapes a woman to her seat, and now the FAA is suing that passenger. The FBI prevented what would have been a mass shooting at an Atlanta rap concert by an Arizona man who has declared that Black lives don't matter. And the Supreme Court has ruled in favor of an accessory that can turn firearms into automatic weapons. All this and more on today's show. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. We're going to start with this American Airlines story because what caught my eye with this story was not so much the fact that American Airlines flight attendants used duct tape on the woman, but the fact that the FAA is now suing this passenger. So here's the story. A woman had to be duct taped to her first class seat on an American Airlines flight to Charlotte after she attempted to open an aircraft door mid-flight. She's now being sued by the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, for nearly $82,000 for unpaid civil penalties stemming from her drawn-out outburst. So Heather E. Wells, 34, made international headlines in July of 2021 when photos were taken by another passenger of her bound and taped to her first-class seat. And again, I'm not going to show the photos because it could be a little triggering. It just seeing the photos again, James, I absolutely could not believe that this is what we're doing in today's, well, this happened in 2021, but still it's 2024. The fact that they actually had to duct tape this woman to her seat is absolutely unbelievable. But let's keep going with the story. Duct tape. I mean, you know what? When I saw the picture, I thought about, kind of like these scary movies, where you've got the person who's attempting to rob someone's house, and then the person who lives in the house decides to, subdue them and duct tape them to the chair. You ever seen that hostage situation?
I saw that. Oh, yeah.
This is what this woman actually looked like. Now, it was a terrifying, incident. It happened mid-flight, about an hour or so into this 2-hour flight, and the woman just would not stop. The FAA says that at that time, she was waging what they call a high-profile campaign against unruly, or they are waging what they call a high-profile campaign against unruly passengers. So the FAA decided to slap Wells with a series of civil penalties to punish her for her conduct aboard Flight 1774. Well, so far, Wells has failed to clear her debt, and now the FAA is asking a district court in San Antonio to help recover what she owes, along with interest and attorney's fees. So, in recently filed court documents, lawyers acting on behalf of the FAA revealed new details about what occurred during that flight from Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, on July 7th, 2021. So over an hour into the 2-hour flight to Charlotte, Wells allegedly ordered a Jack Daniels neat before becoming increasingly agitated and telling her seatmates that she wanted out of the plane. She then gets up from her seat. She starts running towards the back of the plane before dropping to her knees in the aisle. She's talking incoherently to the passengers who, of course, are startled. They don't know what's going on. They're frightened. And it's at that time that a flight attendant approaches Wells. Well, she allegedly threatened to hurt him before shoving him to one side and sprinting towards the front of the plane, where she grabs the door handle to one of the forward emergency exits in attempt to open the emergency doors mid-flight. 2 flight attendants and a Good Samaritan passenger jumped in to restrain Wells, although they struggled to secure her with flexi cuffs. This is typically what airlines will use when they have to subdue a passenger. Wells also repeatedly hit one of the flight attendants in the head, and it would appear that the flexi cuffs were not effective. Eventually, they managed to get Wells back into her seat, but soon it became apparent that the flexi cuffs alone would not be enough to stop Wells from kicking and spitting. It was at that point that the flight attendants decided to duct tape Wells's body to the seat before taping her mouth shut. So imagine you're on a flight and you look over in the seat next to you and you've got a woman kicking the seat, carrying on. She's running up and down the aisles. The flight attendants wrestle her back to her seat. This is all in first class, I believe it's in first class. Get her back into her seat and duct tape the woman to the chair and duct tape her mouth. Do you know what kind of damage duct tape can do to skin? So it must have been pretty bad and pretty scary. So the pilots decide that they're going to continue to Charlotte, but by the time they landed, Wells had managed to get her feet free from the restraints and continued to kick the seat in front of her so hard that the seat broke. She broke the seat, James. That's how hard she actually broke the seat on the plane. So in the end of the story is law enforcement. They deplaned all the other passengers. They removed her last, in order so that they could remove her safely. The paramedics had to sedate this woman before she was untied, or should I say unwrapped, from her seat. Now, there was a passenger on the plane by Ariana Mathena who said the situation on board the plane was chaos and that the flight attendants were frantic as they attempted to bring Wells under control. At one point, the pilot ordered all the other passengers to remain seated while the flight attendants dealt with the incident, while the lavatories were also locked off due to what they called an ongoing security threat. And so again, the FAA has fined Wells for a slew of offenses. So here they are. She was fined $27,950 for attempting to open the emergency exit door, $9,000 for interfering with the duties of a crew member, and $45,000 for threatening, hitting, and spitting at a crew member. So a little month after the incident, United Airlines told its flight attendants that they should not, under any circumstances, use duct tape to restrain unruly passengers. Many flight attendants carry a roll of duct tape with them to fix broken equipment. And so, but this is considered an unauthorized part of their toolkit, which has been used as a restraint device. So United Airlines is saying, no, you absolutely cannot use duct tape to restrain an unruly passenger. Both American Airlines and United Airlines have their own approved restraint devices. Again, it's those flexi cuffs, although as we've seen in this case, they're not always effective. And so this was just a really interesting story. I've never heard of an airline using duct tape on a passenger. How would you feel? And then turn around and be sued? How would you feel about that?
Well, I think that, well, first of all, if Jack Daniels does that to a person or what have you, I don't want another drink of bourbon, but I'll switch something. But there's we live in a day and time where there's so many instances of this going on, unruly passengers, people fighting, flight attendants fighting other passengers, cussing, fussing, or it seems like something, is there enough air pressure inside the cabin or what have you to keep people sustained, or are they just going nuts or something? I have no idea, but it's a dangerous thing because look at it this way. You're up in the air and this person is trying to open up the door. God's sake, it's pressurized. You're all the way up there, and just God forbid if that person was successful in this, how many people would have lost their lives, how serious things would have been, or total malfunction of the plane. And with the duct tape, if the flex cuffs didn't work, I mean, they had to find something to hold that person down or to subdue that person until at least they make some kind of emergency landing. And I know you don't want to hurt people. And I don't expect flight attendants to be the cops or anything, or they have to feed you, they have to give you a little drink and smile and all those other things, whether it's male or female, regardless of the fact, and trying to make you as comfortable as possible, take care of other passengers. And there's always one passenger on the plane. I've
Always.
experienced this. It's always this one passenger on the plane that got a bug and holler, or oh my goodness, I never flew over before, and we're gonna crash. And there was a little turbulence on the plane when I was flying once, and this guy went nuts. He just, oh, we all are gonna perish, and ooh, and now you've upset people, and what do? Do you put cotton in his mouth, toilet paper, wrap his head, or his or her head, or whatever the case may be? Or, like on a cruise ship, the captain has ultimate authority, can detain you, actually handcuff you and detain you and put you in the ship. The ship has a brig, as they call it on the ship. The jail is considered a brig, and they put, of course, you military people, everybody ought to know. And you can really actually, because you're on international seas, a captain has the authority to enforce the laws and keep their passengers safe. They should do something like that too, or have more air marshals or something like that.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, the flight attendants had to make a decision. They used the equipment that they had, that was in their policy that they had been given, and it was not effective. That was the only way that they were going to keep this passenger from potentially bringing down the entire plane. As you said, the plane is pressurized. You open that door, the first thing I've seen enough movies, the first thing that will happen is the person who opened the door is going to get sucked out. And so it certainly would have caused an in-flight emergency, and again, could have been to the detriment of that entire plane. And our listeners are saying absolutely she should be sued, prosecuted, and banned to the full extent. And not just this lawsuit, but that she should be banned for life. Not sure if this woman was having some type of a mental health crisis, but again, it seems that she became agitated. I don't know what they put in that Jack Daniels. I don't know what a Jack Daniels meat is. I don't know what a Jack Daniels meat is. I don't know. I know on the rocks, some ice, and I'm not sure what was in that neat Jack Daniels. But they should have called it Jack Daniels with a splash of chaos, because this woman caused absolute chaos. And I have the picture. I looked at it again. I will put it up on the screen. It's blurry. It's blurred enough. You get the idea. So those of you who are live streaming with us on YouTube, here's the picture of this woman who unfortunately, had to be subdued and duct taped to her seat. It's you never know what you're going to get. We talked about it early in the week. We have some in the Black community that have been experiencing racial profiling, not even in the airport, before they've even gotten on the plane, and then racial profiling and discrimination on the plane. But here we have this poor woman who, unfortunately, I hope she learned her lesson that maybe having alcohol on a flight is not the way to go. And yeah, so we'll see what happens. I'll be interested in knowing if she attempts to countersue. I don't know anyone who's ever sued the FAA, but it'll be very interesting to see if she decides to countersue. All right, so we're gonna take a quick too early for a commercial break. We're gonna move into our next story. And so people are still talking about Hunter Biden's conviction and how it may actually help Joe Biden's image. James has that story. James. Is the Mac still with us?
No, and knowing, forgive me, I was caught up in the air with the Jack Daniels and things like that. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Jack Daniels
no Jack Daniels. That's right. You're exactly right. But I really agree with you, because Hunter's conviction may actually work to the advantage in the upcoming election for his father. Exactly. I was reading, and I had a conversation with a person, and they didn't believe that Hunter Biden should have been convicted. They think that his father should have stepped in. But a better judgment and I'm grateful that we have a president that has better judgment, that he decided that he would let the justice system take its place. And if you didn't know any better, you just might think that the jury found Hunter. You just might think that the Hunter Biden was found guilty this week was precisely what they were going to do anyway. Okay, and the evidence against the president's son that he lied about this drug use and the firearms and forms from 6 years ago, and was overwhelming enough to know that you're going to go to trial, but. Maybe it was just the impression that it was just so trivial, and it was overrated,
It was
and
rigged. It was
the charge,
rigged.
yeah, it was
It
rigged
was
and
rigged.
overrated, and why are you messing with the president's son and everything? But now, if you really think about this, and if we just
Mhm.
sit back and understand, the president had great wisdom and there we go. Hey, you got to have wisdom, great wisdom. You know what I'm saying? Wisdom. You got to have great wisdom in looking at a fact. What kind of a father would let his son, if he had something to do about it, keep him out of trouble? Also understanding, yeah, he's a father, but by him being the chief, might as well say the chief law enforcement officer of our nation, the justice system operates up under the attorney general, which the president is in charge of. There are laws, and I think it showed a great example to the country that no one's above the law, not even my son. And
Absolutely.
therefore, I think it really helps the president in a position that he hasn't taken a stance. Now he still can say, for instance, God forbid, I hope not, but if President Biden does doesn't get a second term, I don't know. Would he pardon his son before he gets out of office? I don't know. Those last minute pardons or something. But I think that the president has, Mr. Biden has the advantage going into these upcoming elections, at least morally. But who's
I
moral
agree.
these days when you got people talking, saying that it's okay for a man to say you can grab certain parts of an anatomy of a woman and they like it and all these other things, and you can unalive a person in the middle of Fifth Avenue and he can get away with it? That does not sound like someone that really is about law and order. That sounds like a lawless person, and
Absolutely.
someone that we shouldn't have in office.
When you kind of, I think what this case has ultimately done is given a stark comparison between these two men who may ultimately both end up running against each other for president. And I agree with you. I think the jury finding him guilty, I think they knew exactly what they were doing. And
Mm.
I think by finding him guilty, the jury not only, well, it is a clear, in my opinion, it's a clear show of Democratic support, but I think what they've done was, it didn't do any injury to Biden's
Right.
image. If anything,
No.
I think it did significant injury to his political rival, Trump. I think because what it does is
Hmm.
it shows if they had found him not guilty on all counts, I think that
Yeah.
actually would have hurt Joe Biden's image, because then people would
Yeah.
have been saying, see, he's just as bad as Trump, right? See,
Yeah.
there is no president, there's no one out there, who respects the justice system. Oh, he,
Right.
and then of course that would have given Trump the argument to say, see, they
Right.
they convicted me, but they did not convict Hunter Biden. So I think it's done a great job of
But
highlighting the difference in the two men,
yeah.
one with integrity, one with not without.
Well, they're grabbing at straws. I mean, they wanted the president's son to be found out guilty. That would have given them every opportunity to just rail and holler and oh foul and this and that and the other. And from the looks of things, instead of doing that, they couldn't do it. They had to come up with something. The punishment wasn't enough. The prosecution wasn't enough. They got to remember, as we said earlier in the week, it was the Trump Department of Justice under his direction as president that brought these charges and had a special counsel. Mr. Biden wasn't even in office. He was a former vice president. And they brought this up because this man was Mr. Biden was going to be the nominee for the Democratic Party. They pulled this stop out. And look at it for what it really is. They have nothing to go on. So the only thing that they can do is come up with some kind of argument, some kind of loop-de-loop and hoop-de-hoop. They got to find something to say. And you can't say anything about this. Yeah, my son's in trouble, but my son's got to learn a lesson too, that one, daddy isn't going to get you out of everything just because I got a position. That may be one point. And the second point is too, you got to set an example for who you are and what your family represents, and I represent the country. Son, you can't do these things and think you can get away with them because I'm in a certain position.
President. Yes.
Exactly.
Absolutely. All right. Well, again, I know that there's more to come. I actually have questioned what this case would have done to Biden's image, and I think the consensus is that it actually has helped his image. So there will be more to come. We'll see where this leads. You're listening to Your Man on the Street with Wisdom's Daughter and James Mack on 92.7 WKRA-FM, your station for information and inspiration. And in other news, an Arizona man planned a mass shooting targeting African Americans at an Atlanta concert to incite a race war, the feds say. A federal grand jury indicted Mark Adams Prieto on charges of firearm trafficking, transfer of a firearm for use in a hate crime, and possession of an unregistered firearm. Ultimately, this man, Mark Adams Prieto, has determined that Black lives don't matter. And, this particular story, this is the one that we're really going to be focusing on today because it's going to lead us into our next story about the importance of proper gun control. We talked about this a little bit on yesterday where we discussed the shooting that happened at a downtown Atlanta food court. We also talked about it in regards to, on the same day, the hijacking that occurred on a Atlanta city transit bus. And so let's give you a little bit more about this story for those of you who haven't heard it. And so again, Mark Adams Prieto believed that he had the perfect plan to commit a mass shooting of African-American people, specifically at an Atlanta rap concert, because he knew that that would be a place where there would be a high population of African Americans in order to start a race war before the 2024 presidential election. And so, believing that martial law would be implemented after the election, the 58-year-old gun dealer from Arizona had recruited two other men for his plan, explaining that they would travel to Atlanta before the concert to stash the weapons in a hiding place so that they would not have to travel with the weapons on the days prior to the concert. Well, traveling, I don't know how they're traveling, but traveling with those weapons would have proved problematic. So here is more on the story.
Back in October, the FBI says it began its investigation into Mark Prieto after a confidential informant who spoke with him more than a dozen times over 3 years at various gun shows said Prieto called for a mass shooting targeting blacks, Jews, and Muslims before the 2024 presidential election. During a January gun show in Phoenix, Prieto tried recruiting that informant and an undercover FBI agent. According to court records, Prieto wanted to carry the plan out in Georgia because, he says, when he was a kid, that was one of the most conservative states in the country. More specifically, Prieto wanted to carry out the attack at a rap concert because he said there would be, quote, a high concentration of African Americans. During a February meetup at a gun show, Prieto began offering details of the plan, including the number of guns to be used. During this meetup, Prieto sold that undercover agent a gun for $2,000 and said he would also like to use grenades during the attack because it can, quote, cause panic. At another gun show in March in Prescott Valley, Prieto provided more specific details. That attack would take place in Atlanta at State Farm Arena on May 14th or 15th. Performing that night was rapper Bad Bunny. During that gun show, Prieto sold an AR-15 rifle to that undercover agent for $1,000 and told them to, quote, bring as many magazines as the gun could carry. In the following weeks, agents continued to monitor Prieto's movements. During an April meetup, Prieto continued to fine-tune his plans, even discussing heading east to do reconnaissance, but emphasized the attack, quote, must happen prior to the election and as soon as possible.
And so the FBI actually was able to thwart this attack. And for those of you who are listening from the local Atlanta area, this is quite scary. Some of you may not have known that this actually was something that was being planned. One of our listeners said the same playbook as on January 6th when they went to the Capitol. And so this man's, Mr. Prieto's plan was to incite what he calls a race war ahead of the election. And so he says, he also informed them that they would, meaning the people that he had recruited to work with him or to plan this out with him to enact this mass shooting. He says he informed them that they would all wear gloves to prevent leaving fingerprints and that they would also destroy the weapons after the shooting by burning them to leave no trace. But as I said, his plan fell apart when it turned out that his two accomplices were working against him, including a confidential informant and an undercover FBI agent. They gathered enough evidence to arrest him on federal gun charges, according to the criminal complaint filed in the United States District Court in Arizona. Now, on this past Tuesday, a federal grand jury indicted Prieto on firearms trafficking, as we said earlier, transfer of a firearm for use in a hate crime, and possession of an unregistered firearm. And he is facing decades in prison. According to the United States Attorney's Office in Arizona, each conviction for firearms trafficking and transfer of firearm for use in a hate crime carries a maximum penalty of 15 years in prison. So if this man is given the maximum penalty, he's not going to be getting out of jail anytime soon. He's already aged, he's age 58, and so likely he will spend the rest of his days in jail. He would also be imposed with a fine of $250,000 or both. A conviction for possession of an unregistered firearm carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison and a fine of $250,000 or both. And so he actually, after recruiting these FBI agents and selling weapons to them, I believe they said that he was picked up while driving eastbound on an interstate in New Mexico. So they found him in New Mexico. He told his accomplices that he was driving to Atlanta to conduct surveillance of the State Farm Arena. And those of you, again, who live in the Atlanta area know that the State Farm Arena is a place where you have concerts, you have shows, you have conventions. There are a lot of things that go on at the State Farm Arena. And so if this man had enacted this plan, if he had been successful in this plan, it probably would have been the largest mass casualty incident that Atlanta has probably ever seen. And so Prieto was arrested with 7 firearms in his car, according to the press release issued by United States Attorney's Office. Federal agents later found more firearms in his home in Prescott, Arizona, including an unregistered short barrel rifle. Now, the sad part is he admitted to discussing the mass shooting with the two men, or with the two other men, but also said that he was not planning on going along with it. Well, clearly he was planning on doing something. He also told law enforcement officers that he was not heading to Atlanta, but to Florida to visit his mother. So this is what he told everyone once he was apprehended. He began to change his story. And when asked why he chose Georgia, and I can't repeat his statement verbatim, but he basically said that because Georgia is such a messed up state, and that he knew that Atlanta, again, would be a place where there would be the highest concentration. So I'm going to read what he says verbatim. And so he says, the reason I say Atlanta, why is Georgia such a messed up, I'm changing the words, messed up state now. When I was a kid, this was one of the most conservative states in the country. Why is it not now? Because as the crime got worse in LA, St. Louis, and all these other cities, all the N-word moved out of those places and moved to Atlanta. This is why it isn't so great anymore. He was planning to have his accomplices yell out KKK all the way and Black lives don't matter, white lives matter during the shooting. They were also going to leave Confederate flags at the location to fully drive their message through. We're going to fight back now, and every whitey across the country will be the enemy, is what he told the two men. Wow. It's a
You
lot.
say James White. You say why you laughing and why you sniggling. Uh, Special announcement, special bulletin to all of you Confederates. The war is over. The Civil War is over. Slavery is over. I don't know what is wrong with these people in Atlanta. They messing with Atlanta. So I mean, you are y'all mad because there are more rich billionaires and business people and well-to-do people and upper middle class people in Atlanta that look like me and wisdom. Are you upset? Why are people so upset with black people these days that our lives don't matter? Our lives matter when our ancestors were picking cotton. And when we were less than three-fourths of a person, when we had to sit in the back of the bus, when we were scared of the ghost at night that rolled through the countryside with torches and things like that, when you had control over a person, you lost control because we don't belong to you. It just does something to me because Atlanta, and so this place and that place was so conservative. Why do they keep using this dang blasted word conservative like it's a badge of honor? And it baffles my mind. But the danger here is this: this man is not the only person at this man's age. This man said he's still talking about, oh, I'm going to visit mother's house or whatever the case may be. Nothing
Well,
wrong with
he
going to
lied.
visit your mother. Well, yeah, there ain't nothing wrong with going to see your mama, or nothing like that. But then here you are, you and your little buddies get together and you deliberately pick out people of color, black people. There are a lot of black people at the rap concert, and it's some white folks in the excuse my French, there's some white people at the rap concert too. There's some white people trying to rap. Okay, so don't just use it as a point of saying, I just hate stereotypes like that. I'm going to go to the rap concert and I'm going to unalive as many people as I can, and I'm going to use weapons. And make sure you bring the right magazines and this and that and the other. Excuse me, Confederate racist prejudice and the like. I don't understand your beef with us. Are you mad because we're making money now and we're not free labor? Are you upset because maybe the advancements of black people have come so far, the great inventions that have been made? You say, James, you harbor. No, if he can talk and say that conservative and people that look like him and call us out of our names like we're nobodies, that name, you know what it is that you said that you couldn't say it out. That goes both ways. Look up the dictionary, look in the dictionary and find out the definition of such. This needs to stop. That's why we're living in this climate, and we're living in this climate of hate all over again. I wasn't present for the civil rights movement. I did not witness a lot of things. I was a child, just a baby, and to see this come back full circle like this, the hate. In a country where they say that God bless America and God make America great again. How can you mention God in the same breath as you call me and fellow people that are of a color persuasion that may not be your? Are you mad because our color is not dull and we come in many shades or whatever? I'm not trying to make this personal. The hate has to stop on both sides, but the hate really has to stop. This is dangerous. This is really dangerous. And if people that are of that persuasion do not see the danger in it, you're just as sick as this gentleman.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think where the danger lies for me is, and I think one of our listeners kind of touched upon it, is the fact that you have a group of people who are very emboldened by the former president, the now convicted felon president, right? Trump, to fight. We have to make America great again. So you have a number of people who are running with this "Make America Great Again" rhetoric, but what they're doing is quite dangerous. Now, Donald Trump has never come out and told anyone in his defense to unalive anybody. There's nowhere where you're going to hear where he said that. However, we know with one of the cases that he's facing, he did say enough to incite violence. And although it's been years since, he was, president, there's still a number of white supremacy groups around this country. This
that
man
support him.
that
I'm
support him.
sorry.
This man Mark Prieto. No, it's fine. This man
Yeah,
Mark Prieto
yeah.
talked about Los Angeles. He talked about some other major cities where the Black community have moved from these places, New York and so forth, and have come to Atlanta. So he saw that as an opportunity, but his plan was to purposely incite a race war ahead of the election. And I'm trying to
Yeah,
figure out
but
what
my
this man
my
thought.
question to you, Wisdom, is this: when you brought this out, and I don't mean to come in here like this, we got to do this before the election. It always comes full circle back. All of this garbage that's been people. Open your eyes and your understanding to see why in the world would I want an evil, low down? I'm just going to say it like it is. If it was Joe Biden saying this, okay, I would say the same thing and I would stand on the same thing. It makes no sense that it should be no contest. Okay, good, bad, or indifferent. I know that these are the choices that we have. Why would I make a choice to support a person that really truly these people, whomever's that's behind it, because he doesn't have the intelligence. I'm just going to tell the truth. He has no intelligence. Okay, he don't have the intelligence of I don't want to even think of what he doesn't have the intelligence of. Why would I want to support a person like that that's going to cause and want to cause division, or the poster boy for the other people that feel that their country now is being taken back away from them? My ancestor and yours built this country. They can say they built it all they want to. We built it with free labor. You didn't have to pay us. You didn't have to give us insurance. You didn't have to give us an education. Tote that bale and lift the barge. Do what you need to do. Yes, sir, boss. This and that and the other. And I'm being facetious, but that's what they want to take us back to. I wouldn't want no race of people to be subjected to that kind of foolishness, especially in this country. You want to make America great? Vote for somebody, vote for democracy, not just the party, but use your sense. Why would we go back generations and generations and go back to the way, we're going to go back to Jim Crow? You're going to put us in the back of the bus? Hey, I got a question. We own the buses now. We own the Rolls Royces now. We got some planes. We own, we ain't going. We ain't going. I ain't going. I'm sorry.
Just to go.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. Just to go back to this article, this man, the last thing that he said to these two men that he recruited, which again he didn't know, one was an informant and one was undercover FBI, but he says, "Show no mercy, no quarter," because he believed that African American people, and he said it, quote unquote, can't have any feeling. They're not people. They are monsters, as far as I'm concerned. And it is that attitude that is quite dangerous in this country. I want to just focus on this particular guy. Right now, as we said earlier, it is I'm not even going to say very likely. I'll say that we can all conclude that there, again, are groups of people who felt very emboldened by having someone like a Donald Trump in office who clearly supported white supremacist groups. But getting back to this particular guy, and again, the FBI did amazing work in catching this man. Did amazing work in following up in their investigation of this man, because he had plans, and although he tried to say that no, he was going to Florida, although he tried to say that he was visiting his mother, he absolutely had plans to carry out what would have been a bloody act of violence. I mean, it would have been detrimental for
It
the
would have.
city, for the
Would
for
have.
the city of Atlanta. And the fact that just thinking about the words that he said, this hatred. And again,
Yeah.
you have these groups who feel and have felt and still feel very emboldened. I don't know what he was expecting to happen. I mean, his plan was to start a race war. I know what a
Mhm.
race war is, but I'm not really sure what exactly he was expecting to be the outcome of this. I mean, in my mind, the outcome would have been an outcry from the black and brown community to say, hey, listen, this is Trump's fault. This is like one of our listeners said, this is a
Yeah.
repeat of what happened on January 6th, just in a different version. Do we need to be, are we safe in our cities as African American
Yes.
people?
Yes.
This
Yeah.
is
We say.
one group. This is
Yeah.
one person who the
Yeah.
FBI was able to catch. Will let you know the FBI is on it. They are tracking these groups, they are tracking their activity, and they're letting them know they're not going to be able to get away with this. But it just makes you think about other groups that we may not even know about who may have similar plans. I say that to say,
Yeah.
Donald Trump is he's a dangerous man. Go ahead, and I know you wanted to say something, and then I've got some more coming out of this
No,
this article.
I'm just agreeing with you. Donald Trump is a symptom of the problem. And forgive me for raising my voice, but Donald Trump is a symptom. He is not the problem. He's just the big symptom. What if I taken my nieces or my nephews to this concert that was planned? What if this person would have carried out what he planned? The
Mm,
sycophants, the sickness of people in 2024 still can't accept the fact we weren't even back in the Civil War, or most of us, most of the greats in the civil rights movement have died on, and maybe their children or their grandchildren are left, and we're still fighting this same battle. It gets
yeah.
sickening and it gets tiresome after a while that we have to come on the air, report the news, even from our own communities, that because of isolation, because of economic suppression, and for the advancement or to try to be advanced in this society, we have lawlessness in our own communities. And they sit back and they laugh at us and they say the only thing we can do is unalive these people. They're good for nothing now because we can't force them to do what we say. We can't scare them. The boogeyman and the ghosts and the white sheets don't work anymore. So we're going to do what we do, and I'm just afraid that I'm just afraid that not afraid really. It just concerns me that that this man had this kind of thinking. But you got some more inside the story. Go ahead with some more inside. You got a couple of more points I want to hear about.
Yeah, you said it right. You talked about this man's line of thinking. There are many groups out here who follow a similar line of thinking. It just so happened to be that it was Atlanta that was targeted, but there are many cell groups and supercell groups like this that are banding together. I mean, it almost feels as if, and I've heard rumblings, on the streets and in different social spaces of groups of people who want to bring back the KKK. This is the reality. We cannot sit back and be complacent as a people to say, well, because we have, equal education, and because, we are able to get the same jobs as other races, albeit without the same pay. We have a lot of work to do in this country. We are still so far from where we need to be. We haven't reached the finish line. It's not even in sight. And yet and still, we have people who are trying to drag us back to, a time and a place and a way of living where they literally would be able to put their foot on our necks and keep it there. I believe it was comedian Dave Chappelle who made a joke, and he said something like, I'm gonna try to phrase it the way he said it, but he says, there's one thing that bothers me when it comes to white people, and he says, you often hear them saying, he says, how can you tell a black person and black people who built this country for free? Okay, we built this country for free, but yet you turn around and call us lazy and tell us to get a job, and he was making a joke,
Hmm.
but I looked at it differently. When I analyzed it, I said, there was, growing up in the 80s and the 90s, there was a culture of black people are lazy. Black people don't want to work. Black people are looking for a handout. And yet again, black people built this country and we did it for free. And yet
But
we are
wisdom,
called
but wisdom. My,
lazy.
my concern, my concern is that what got us here.
Mm.
That's and if we really look at it, yeah, there's lazy. You talking about lazy? There's some lazy people that don't look like me. Trust me, I work for many of them. Uh, I have. When I was starting in radio, I had to work extra hard. I was the gopher. I was the intern, and I'll never forget the copy editor told me only thing that you'll be good for is going to get uh, coffee for us. And the donuts downstairs, they had old donuts place downstairs on State Street. I worked at Channel 7 in Chicago. I was an intern partly at many different places. I enjoyed it. Um, I wish that if I could find him right now, and it's this means something to me, and really look at him and say, hey, how you like me now? I don't get cookies and donuts and things. If you want something, I'll be kind enough to get you something to drink. If you want something, and that will be not because it's my job or you got to look down on me. Uh, it's because I've earned the reputation of doing what I do, like you have. And I hope that we can wake up and see the tricks that they try to throw at us. You, me, everybody have an opportunity to advance. But like you were saying, this guy really was he was passionate. I'm going to unalive everybody and I'm going to go to the rap concert. Now I ain't going to go to the symphony. I'm not going to go to the opera where they have the bow ties and the tails and the ball gowns and things like that. I'm going to the rap Get Down and Boogie, the rap concert where all of them are. Well, sir, we all don't go to the rap concerts. No offense to the hip hop nation. Some of us like soul music. Some of us like classical. Some of us like a whole lot of other genres. And then you pick a progressive city and surrounding areas like the great city of Atlanta. God bless all of y'all. Y'all been through a whole lot down there in Atlanta, Lord help us. They
It's
hijacking buses and
Oh Lord,
everything,
we're
trying to
having
shoot
shootouts.
y'all and everything.
Listen,
God
we
help
we
you.
can't even get food anymore. Okay, you go to the food court, you can't get food anymore, right? You go to the
You
food
can't
court.
ride the bus. All you got is
Okay,
car fare. You try to get to the job and you can't even get to the job. Brothers going nuts and our folks is going nuts because of the way we've been treated. Yeah.
yeah, Atlanta has definitely been going through it as of late. And yeah, just getting back to this particular story, of course what caught my attention was Atlanta. I said, oh boy, I saw a mass shooting Atlanta, and I'm like, well, I haven't heard anything. What is going on? And again, this was plans that this man had. And as I said, we need to keep our eyes and ears open, because there are other groups like this. Okay, on March 20, this man went to several different gun shows. So on March 23rd, he went to a gun show in Prescott Valley. He told what he didn't know at the time was an undercover agent that he still planned to go forward with the attack. He said, that if they waited until after the election, they might have everything in place. You can't drive, you'll be stopped. Meaning to say that if they waited until after the election, there may be some laws put in place that you can't, you'll be stopped, whatever that means. And so he says that he also said that the targeted event again would likely be a rap concert at State Farm Arena in Atlanta, scheduled to take place on May 14th or 15th, or sometime in June or July. So he actually had a time frame narrowed down of when he had planned to do this. And we talked about Hotlanta and how it just seems like when the weather warms up here, things just they can get a little crazy. Authorities were not able to determine what specific concert this man was attempting to enact this violence on, but they basically provided a couple of nights. So they had a Puerto Rican musician by the name of Bad Bunny who was scheduled to perform at the arena around that time. He also told the undercover agent that he wanted them to wear hoodies, according to the affidavit, because he believed no one was going to be suspicious about someone wearing a hoodie at a rap concert. So again, we're dealing with a number of stereotypes. We're dealing with a group of people who definitely don't understand the Black community. And the thing is, this man is 58 years old. He has children. He likely has children. Shouldn't say he does. He likely has children. And those children may have children. And this is the next generation coming up who's going to ultimately run this country when we are gone. And once again, we are sitting in a place where you have a man who looks at a human being as not human. I won't even say less than human, not human at all. No mercy, no quarter. They can't feel anything. They don't have any feelings, and this is not what we're talking about on today's show, but there is a mindset, a cultural bias that seems to think that Black and brown people have a higher threshold of pain than people of other races. Well, let me tell you, if you cut me, I bleed red. If you pinch me, I hurt. If you shoot me, I bleed. I'm going to feel it the same way you would feel it. That is a myth. But here we have this man who was spreading the same racist rhetoric that Black people don't feel. And that let's wear a hoodie to the concert because then we can blend in. This could have been, I'm going to use Donald Trump's word, this could have been very bad, very, very bad. This would have been a very, very, very bad thing. And don't mean to poke fun, but again, it just highlights the work that we have to do in this country, and do our best to change the country's mind in the sense of some of these cell groups who feel this way. I don't know if that's us banging our head against a brick wall and thinking that we can change these people's mind, but what we need to do is we need to continue to work to ensure that the people that feel this way are not put in positions of power, political power, where they could potentially take away the rights that we fought so hard to obtain for Black people. And James, I'll let you give us your final thoughts on this.
I think you said it all. Hear the voice of a mother. That's you. Hear the voice of people that have strived. Our people have strived to fit in to a society that we helped to build. And this is just one gentleman. This is just one I'm sorry. I'm trying to be nice. I don't want to call anybody out of their name or anything. But this is just one person. Imagine 30 or 40.
Hundreds.
Maybe not.
Imagine hundreds and thousands of people
that
across
are following. That are following
that feel like
this mindset. That he's the microphone that they're hollering out of. He's their PA system. They're talking, and he's just standing there, and he says these things. Never have I, in recent history, since I've known what a president is, ever heard anyone, former or sitting, say the things that he says with a straight face, like, outdo this to people, and we're going to lock other people up, and we're going to, and we're going to take you back. And why? What is the hatred towards people that look like me and you? Are you mad because we look good? Are you mad because we smile good? We come in many different flavors and colors. Are you upset? Why are you upset about people that you forced to come here? You forced our ancestors to come here. I'm not just saying that, but then there are people that may not look like us that are disgusted with him too. Like, what are you doing? There are coworkers and people that I know and clients that I know that are of another persuasion that we're good friends. I've been to their house, I've eaten dinner and so forth and so on. We've been on business trips and all these things. We socialize and we get along like we're human beings. And just because, I don't know where it comes from, somebody's upset because of the success that we've had. Why shouldn't we be successful? We built the country. We built the society that we're in. We've contributed. Why can't we enjoy those things that we need to enjoy? And like you said, there's some serious things that we need to consider along the way. And I just hope that we have enough of an opportunity, and this platform and any other platform that gives you this opportunity to do so, just to wake us up. We need to wake up and see. They say woke, yeah, you better be woke and see what's going on. Not to be a vigilante or not to get to a point that we hate someone, but to be aware of what's going on. And let's make a difference together by continuing to be informed on what's going on. That's my last words on that part.
Absolutely. And we'll be back in 30 seconds. You're listening to Your Man on the Street with Wisdom's Daughter and James Mack on 92.7 WKRA-FM, your station for information and inspiration. So we have been talking about this Arizona man who planned a mass shooting that would have targeted African Americans at an Atlanta concert in order to incite a race war. Now, this man has been indicted by a grand jury, and he's looking at some serious jail time. Now, this indictment makes it very clear why our next story is so important. A Supreme Court has ruled in favor of an accessory that can turn any ordinary firearm into an automatic weapon, such as a machine gun. This was an interesting one. So the Supreme Court has rejected a ban that was enacted during the Trump administration, and we'll get into that ban in just a second, on something called bump stocks. Okay. And so this bump stock, again, is an accessory that can literally turn any firearm into an automatic weapon, such as a machine gun. So the Supreme Court on Friday struck down a ban on bump stocks that, again, was enacted by the Trump administration after the deadly mass shooting in Las Vegas in 2017. The decision, by a vote of 6-3, split along ideological lines. Justice Clarence Thomas, writing for the majority, found that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives had exceeded its power when it prohibited this device, again, which is an attachment that enables a semi-automatic rifle to fire at a speed that literally could rival that of a machine gun. The agency, he added, had overstepped in issuing a rule that classified bump stocks as machine guns. We hold that a semi-automatic rifle equipped with a bump stock is not a machine gun because it cannot fire more than one shot by a single function of the trigger, Justice Thomas stated. He included several diagrams of the firing mechanism in his opinion. The decision was a forceful rejection of one of the government's few steps that they've made to address gun violence in this country, particularly as legislative efforts have stalled in Congress. It's also highlighted deep divisions on the court, or in the court, I should say, over the issue as the country grapples with gun violence. We talked a lot about this yesterday. Although the case centers on firearms, this is really not about challenging the Second Amendment. Rather, it's one of several cases this term seeking to undercut the power of administrative agencies. Justice Sotomayor filed a dissent, joined by Justices Elena Kagan and Ketanji Brown Jackson. Justice Sotomayor summarized her dissent from the bench. a practice that's usually reserved for very profound disagreements, and it is the first such announcement of the term. She stated that the majority puts machine guns back into the hands of civilians. She said, when I see a bird that walks like a duck, swims like a duck, and quacks like a duck, I call that bird a duck. A bump stock equipped semi automatic rifles automatically fire more than one shot without manually reloading by a single function of the trigger. Because I, like Congress, call that a machine gun, I respectfully dissent. Now, there was someone in the room who challenged this thought. That was a man by the name of Michael Cargill, who's a gun shop owner in Texas. Now, this man is backed by the New Civil Liberties Alliance, which is an advocacy group with financial ties to Charles Koch, a billionaire who has long supported conservative and libertarian causes. The organization primarily targets what it considers unlawful uses of administrative power, basically saying that they overstepped their bounds, or the Trump administration overstepped their bounds by putting a ban on bump stocks in the first place. Now, Mark Chenoweth, the president of the legal advocacy group, said in a statement that the organization was delighted that the court had sided with Mr. Cargill, delighted that they're putting machine guns back into the hands of civilians. He said this result is completely consistent with the Constitution's assignment of all legislative power to Congress. Bump stock opponents should direct any views at Congress, not the court, which faithfully applied the statute in front of it. Now, here's where this becomes a challenge. So, some of you may or may not be aware, but back in 2018, the Trump administration issued a new ruling banning bump stocks. Again, this is an attachment that enables semi-automatic rifles to fire in sustained rapid burst. And this is the same attachment that the gunman used to massacre 58 people and wound hundreds of others at a Las Vegas concert in October of 2017. Many of you may remember that. It was one of the worst mass shootings and active shootings that this country had seen in quite some time, and possibly ever. So the new regulation banned the sale or possession of these devices under a new interpretation of existing law. Americans basically who own bump stocks would have 90 days to destroy those devices or turn them in to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Exclusives. And that information was posted on the Justice Department's website. So again, for those of you who are not familiar with this accessory, it is an accessory. Bump stocks basically work by harnessing a firearm's recoil energy to slide it back and forth to bump against a squeeze trigger. So basically, it keeps firing without the need to continuously pull the trigger again and again and again. What does that sound like to you? Because to me, that sounds like an automatic weapon, or what we identify as a machine gun. The Justice Department said that this function transforms semi-automatic weapons like assault rifles, styled similar to the AR-15, into fully automatic machine guns, which Congress sharply restricted in 1986, which allowed the ban. And so, with limited exceptions, the Gun Control Act, as amended, makes it unlawful for any person to transfer or possess a machine gun unless it was lawfully possessed prior to the effective date of statute. This is what the regulation said during the Trump administration. The bump stock type devices covered by this final rule were not in existence prior to the effective date of the statute, and therefore were going to be prohibited. So this is what was determined back in 2018. Now, what's being determined, and I don't understand why they're doing this now, why they had to do this now, right at the end of Biden's administration, because, James, I know what the Republicans are probably going to say and what Donald Trump is going to say. Hey, I banned guns. I got machine guns off the street, and, Biden put them back in office. This is what Donald Trump does. He will misskew and misstate and misinform. And that's why we do what we do here on this station, because we want you to be fully informed about what's really going on here. So, James, I want your thoughts on gun control and the fact that the Supreme Court determined that this accessory is legal. So now I can turn any semi-automatic weapon into a machine gun. What do you think about that?
I say check out what Justice Thomas decides, how could he, with the damage that these weapons, the weapon modifications, have done to uh, literal neighborhoods and communities, it baffles me, and it really, I'm encouraged because once again, a mother, Justice Jackson, decided to speak up and say, listen, wait a minute, these things are ridiculous. What do we need a machine gun for? That's the good question. What do we need these
Exactly.
automatic weapons
Why?
for?
Right?
I
Why do you need
mean,
to turn
why do you
a
need it?
weapon into a machine gun? And why?
Yeah.
And James, why do you think, in your opinion, why do you think the Supreme Court sided with this gun owner? Why would they now say that no, that's unconstitutional when in 2018 they interpreted the law the same way to say no, we can't have this because this violates the Constitution because it allows you to turn a weapon into a machine gun, although it's not a machine gun. What are your thoughts?
Different strokes for different folks. Your different folks was Trump. Your different folks are Mr. Biden. Therefore, those Supreme Court justices that was waiting on an opportunity to have colleagues such as theirs to not only to institute changes in gun laws, rights, privileges. It's okay. You can carry your gun. You can carry your weapon out in the open in most states, southern states, most other states. You can practically with no registration, with no license or training or anything, because they say you have a right to bear arms. That was the trick, number one, because they knew that once the guns hit the street, let's talk about the problem. The guns hit the street, the other community of our persuasion are going to use them on each other, kill each other. We get rid of most of them. That's the conversations that I hear. They got them guns. They're going to turn them on themselves. And the gun crimes are not as serious as they are because the laws are not serious. I'm not surprised at the Supreme Court. I'm not surprised at this Supreme Court that they've gone this far as to saying, well, not just because they want, or there's some kind of systematic thinking that they have, that they want to make sure that, hey, we want to make sure that Americans own their weapons. It's already in the Constitution that you can bear arms, right? But these modifications, the gun lobby, the NRA, and all of these people that says, well, if you vote a certain way, they're going to take our gun rights away. That's furthest from the truth. That's furthest from the truth. I have to give you an illusion. I got to lie to you right to your face. Oh, guns are wonderful. We need them only in certain places. If they could ban guns from everybody. See, the problem that comes in is our right to be a citizen. They did not figure that people of color, or of this color that I am, that we would not be able to have those fundamental rights as a citizen. We got the right as a citizen to bear arms. They don't want us to bear arms. They don't want you and me to bear arms. They don't want you to do that because that means that you might turn them on us. So they can't deny us, but they can make it so difficult. And they can bring these high-powered weapons and wake them up and say that I can't just pow pow and singly hit you. I want to squeeze the trigger and it's going to, I'm going to take care of everybody. Street sweeper or whatever you want to call it. There's no need for a machine gun. To me, you can have what you want, but then I don't have a need for it. But then this just opens up the door not only to the misuse of the Second Amendment, but it forms the lining to be able to turn around all of the achievements that have been made. Justice Jackson said it best. I mean, you read it for yourself. You heard it for yourself. It's going to take more than just her. We got to wake up and see where we're going and in what direction. And then you got, and let me go back to Justice Thomas just for a couple seconds. This man who took Thurgood Marshall's place, the same Thurgood Marshall that helped with Brown versus the Board of Education, that tried to help bring in and usher in a new and a better way of life for people of color. This man took over from that, and look at what we have. Look at what we have. Look at what we have. We got to make some changes.
Absolutely. One of our listeners said, I advise people to go back and look at the Supreme Court confirmation hearings. They were all lying. They are opposite of what they swore to do. And I think we're beginning to see, some of that. I'm not really sure if this was a plot to undermine the Biden administration, to kind of, undo something that most people agreed with during the Trump administration. One of the good things that occurred, because here's the thing, and I know, we harp on Donald Trump a lot, and, we don't often have good things to say, but no one is all bad. There are things that Donald Trump did do that did benefit people. This was one of them. The stimulus checks, although everyone didn't receive them, but those who received them likely needed them, regardless of what they did with them. Again, these are some of the good things that came out of that. And now, right before an election, the Supreme Court decides to do this. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me as to why they would do this now. The article does say that the Supreme Court justices appear to struggle to understand the mechanics of a bump stop and precisely how it increases, a gun's firing speed. And so that could have, played into some of the decisions made. But I don't know if I should say I'm shocked, surprised, or not surprised by Justice Clarence Thomas. I am almost rendered speechless, and I am grasping at straws to understand how he could overturn something that would have been beneficial to all people, but especially to the Black community. And that's why we talked about the previous story first, because this man was ultimately using a rifle with similar capabilities, or planning to use something with similar capabilities to take out what could have been thousands and maybe even tens of thousands of people at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta. This was something that was ultimately, as I said, a protection for all people, but something that was a good thing for the Black community. And so during their oral arguments, there was a huge debate around whether the device transformed a firearm into a machine gun, and also about this accessory. Would that enable would this enabled accessory, should it be prohibited as a part of a category that is highly regulated by the ATF? And I say yes. I don't understand how they could not say that. Again, it's clear. What the Constitution says is clear. So I'm not really sure why there was confusion. Now I'll go back to the reason why this is so important, because again, it was utilized in 2017 during the Las Vegas shooting out there. And that month, a high stakes gambler whose name we should well know, Stephen Paddock, 64 years old, perched on the 32nd floor of a hotel in Las Vegas and opened fire on a country music festival, unaliving 60 people and injuring hundreds. In his arsenal were a dozen AR-15 style rifle, outfitted with the same device that Clarence Thomas and the Supreme Court, we have to say, because I can't just blame it on one man, has determined is legal. In about, just to take you back, for those of you who may not remember that incident, in about 11 minutes, Paddock fired more than 1,000 rounds of ammunition in what remains the deadliest mass
Wait a minute,
shooting
hold on.
in modern U.S. history. You heard what
How
I said.
many rounds? What? No, say it again, because I don't think they heard what you said.
In 11 minutes. Think about that. We don't really hear about this too much anymore because a lot of organizations have banned smoking on their campuses. But if you ever took a smoke break, 5-minute smoke break, and the amount that it would take you to probably smoke all the way to the end 2 cigarettes, that man fired more than 1,000 rounds of ammunition.
My God.
That was the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history. All right. And The investigators later said that they found a dozen rifles that were modified with bump stocks in his hotel. And for those of you who again are are just joining us, or who haven't comprehended what we're talking about, this is an accessory that is now legal for people to purchase and utilize. The same way they would just go to a gun store or to a gun show, that will allow them to take a normal semi-automatic weapon, an automatic weapon where they would have to pull the trigger over and over and over and over. Now they can add something to it where they can pull the trigger one time and it will just continuously fire. That's what now has been unleashed back onto the streets, back into the hands of civilians, because of politicians and the Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Now, I don't know if as a result of this is going to be a topic for the Biden administration in terms of gun control. I think it should be. I think there should be political pressure to do something about this particular device, and to see what can be done to overturn this ruling. Just how they overturned it for the Trump administration. I mean, they determined that this was illegal during the Trump administration, and now during the Biden, at the end of the Biden administration, they're saying it's legal. There should be some way for them to overturn it, and this is just one of those things that we need to keep our eyes on. So we just want to highlight again some of the things that we want for you to take with you, and when we are determining our values and what we're looking for in our next candidate, I think our gun control laws is something that we definitely need to look at. We've been talking a lot about the city of Atlanta, but there are many cities. They may not always make the news, but there are many, many cities that are experiencing an increase in gun violence. And although those numbers may go down in certain areas in certain parts of this country, there are other areas where they're plagued with gun violence every single day. I can only imagine, I don't want to imagine what might have happened if this man, Mark Prieto, had succeeded in enacting his plan where he called for no mercy, no quarter, because Black people don't feel. Black people are not even people. So now we don't matter, because that's what he said. Black lives don't matter. And as James said earlier, Black lives mattered. They mattered when we were picking cotton. They mattered when we were nursing our master's babies. They mattered when we were in the kitchen cooking and serving food that we were not ourselves allowed to eat because we were given the scraps and the leftovers. We had to make do with cornmeal and pig intestines, which has now been turned into a delicacy in some restaurants, right? Chitterlings, whatever you want to call them. We mattered then. Yeah. We mattered when they needed someone to plant their fields. We mattered when they need someone to sow and reap their crops. You know? Now suddenly, because they can't benefit off of our labor anymore, they can't control our every move. They can't tell us when to wake up and when to go to sleep. They can't tell us what jobs we can have. They can't tell us if and when we can marry. They can't tell us what faith we have to follow. Now we don't matter. Black lives do matter. All lives matter. Let's be clear. But all lives are not being lost by the second and by the minute. All ethnic groups are not targeted the way the Black community has been targeted for years. There are people in power who want to put us under their feet. They want to put us back in chains. Plantations don't exist anymore. You very rarely are you even going to see raw cotton growing. But if they could take us back there, or some semblance of it, and make no mistake, they've already done it. Jails have become the new form of slavery, because we know that Black people sit in jails and they're incarcerated in jails at a higher percentage and rate than any other race, even though we only represent a small portion. And we're given sentences that don't fit the crime. They're so much longer than what the crime entails. Why are we always given the max? Why are we always subjected to excessive use of force by law enforcement. A lot of things for us to think about as we go into this upcoming election. One of our listeners said it doesn't make any sense, as if Clarence Thomas, it's as if Clarence Thomas hates his ethnicity. And we talked about that earlier in the week when we talked about a Black Republican who said Jim Crow laws were a good thing for the Black community. Final comment. They are trying to decrease us and increase them, and they are losing being the majority. We want to thank you so much for listening to 92.7 WKRA-FM. Make sure you follow us on YouTube. Make sure you follow us on Facebook. If you've enjoyed this show, make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube. You'll find us here Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time on 92.7 WKRA. You're listening to Your Man on the Street with Wisdom's Daughter and James Mack on 92.7 WKRA-FM, your station for information and inspiration.